The Baltimore Ravens hired Anthony Weaver as their newest defensive coordinator, and Weaver has already spoken about the opportunity.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Kevin Ostreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And now the #1 sports podcast network. Appreciate everybody for being here, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day. We have 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage and content here for you. Thanks so much to all the everydayers, the first-time listeners. If you're somewhere in the middle, thank you as well. And on today's show, the Ravens, their coordinator spots, they are situated. Anthony Weaver is your newest Ravens defensive coordinator, a very familiar face. And Weaver has already spoken about the opportunity of coming back to Baltimore. We'll talk about what Anthony Weaver had to say about being the Ravens defensive coordinator in the first part of the show. Then in the second part of the show, Declan Doyle, the truth was revealed on just how much of a role he had in Chicago by a Bears player. We'll dive into that, and then we'll talk about Jesse Minter and him striking again, doing a really good job rounding out his staff. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Here with me to break it all down, it is Ravens long snapper Nick Moore returning to the show, and self-proclaimed, or at least I proclaim him a tech genius, so we're going to just roll with that here. Nick, good to have you back on the show. I know. How's your offseason been so far? And it's been a lot of moving parts in Baltimore right now with the Ravens. Everything's moving and grooving. How's all that been for you?
Yo, Kev, I don't know. I would say I'm a tech genius as I'm on my phone because I can't seem to get my camera to work on my new computer.
We'll give you a pass. It's all right.
We're figuring it out. We'll get there. We'll get there. Off season's been good, man. It's been crazy. I'll say that. It's been hectic times up here in Baltimore. I've been able to spend a lot of time at home with the kids and my wife, and then did some traveling, played some golf in Puerto Rico, and there's no golf being played up here right now. We still got over a foot of snow on the ground. So
Yeah.
I'll probably play golf in March at the rate it's going right now. But it's going well. Got a lot of plans for traveling. Got a lot of weddings coming up. A couple of the guys are getting married, so going to be traveling around to their weddings and spending some time with the boys and being able to be there with the family and stuff. But I mean, football has been. I feel like it's just been moving like crazy. Like everything happens so fast. With Harb's exit right after the season, and then it was kind of dormant there for about 2 weeks, and then they hired Jesse, and now it's just been boom, boom, boom. I feel like every day somebody else is getting hired. So got to make a staff, got to get us ready to get us ready to rock and roll because we got the new head coach. So the offseason program will start 2 weeks earlier than normal. So got to be ready to rock and roll 1st of April, and I think we're doing that. And I like the things that they've been making, the moves that they've been making last few days, last few weeks. So I know there's a lot of buzz, a lot of excitement, a lot of familiar faces coming back in the building. So it's gonna be a hell of a time this offseason.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's a new era of Ravens football. Obviously, with Minter coming in, you mentioned it. Like every day, it's been something new with the staff and getting guys in for interviews or hiring guys. And now the coordinator spots are set. We'll talk about Declan Doyle, the OC, a little later. But Anthony Weaver getting hired on Monday as a defensive coordinator. Someone obviously I know, Nick, Anthony Weaver being a part of those Ravens teams with him. Obviously, the connection is very deep with Weaver being a member of the team, both as a player and as a coach. I mean, when you heard that news, I mean, how pumped were you? And I mean, what is Baltimore getting, I guess, back now in Anthony Weaver in that role?
I love that pick, man. I think, when he was here for the 3 seasons in 21, 22, and 23 as a defensive line coach, I thought he did a heck of a job. And I know a lot of guys love him. I personally love Weave. I think he's a fantastic person, human being. He's a great leader of men. He's a great football coach. Obviously got the great history as a player as well. I think for us, like having a guy coming in, a lot of the guys on the defense know him. A lot of them have worked with him. And so the newer guys that haven't, his resume speaks for itself. And I think what he was able to do in Miami for the 2 seasons he was a defensive coordinator there, battling a lot of stuff that they battled down there in Miami, I thought he did a hell of a job. And I'm really excited to have him back. A guy that I'm super comfortable with. A lot of us are. And I think, having he's he's so smart with that up front interior front seven guys, and then adding his mind with Jesse's mind and what he was able to do with the Chargers defense. I just think that these are, two mega defensive minds clashing together that are going to be able to work up some pretty great things, because we have so many unique weapons on our defense, from Kyle Hamilton to Roquan. Obviously we got to, pass rush is going to be something that we have to build on this offseason, and working with some new guys and things like that. But we have so much young talent, with Teddy Buchanan and Nate Wiggins and TJ Tampa coming along, and Malachi Starks, and all these guys, and Fub, and we got Brody coming back, and we got Big Trav locked up, and and Tavius and Jabo, and I just feel like having these two coaches together, kind of collaborating, they're just some of the top defensive minds in the entire league. And I can't wait to see the product that they can produce, come September. I think it's going to be one that's going to be unique, and I think it's going to be one that it's going to get us back to, because both of these guys know the history and the tradition of defense here in Baltimore. They have a deep love and appreciation for the physicality, the execution, the dominance that it takes to play here on defense. And I think these guys are going to be two great, outstanding coaches that are going to lead this defense to get us back to where, as Mr. Bisciotti would say, that 2000 Raven defense, when they were just absolutely dominant. That's like his favorite unit of all time. He just absolutely loved that crew. So if we can get back to that, we're doing something right. And I think these two guys are going to be the guys that can do that for us.
Yeah, 100%. And, Weaver actually spoke about, like, once he became the defensive coordinator, he spoke about the opportunity. This clip coming from Roger Weiland over at WNYT, which is News Channel 13. And I think from what I could gather, Nick, this apparently, like, there was already a scheduled interview for Weaver and wow. Roger Weiland, but I guess minutes after the news broke, or that he found out, he hopped on the interview. And so Roger asked him about the situation, congratulated him, and Weaver said that himself and his entire family is ecstatic. And he also said, quote, "It's home. It will always be home for me. If there's a coordinator job you want in the NFL, it's to be the coordinator of the Baltimore Ravens. It means a little bit more there in my eyes to have that title now and be blessed to have that opportunity with Coach Minter, Eric Acosta, Ozzie. Man, I just feel incredibly grateful and incredibly blessed right now." So he's fired up for the opportunity, and that's something he brings to the table, right? Obviously, Zach Gore was fired up, and he was that energy ball in his own right. But Anthony Weaver also brings that to the table as well, where there's a clip going around right now, Nick, about Anthony Weaver and what he said in Miami a little bit, and some of that, I guess, the mindset of what he has. And he said, quote, "I'm old school. I may sit up here and I'm a nice guy. I smile. I do all those things. But all of our problems that we need to solve can be solved through violence." And that's like that. That's like that. All right, I'm ready to run through a wall. Like, give me 5 walls. I'm breaking through all of them right now. Like, what is Coach Weaver like in terms of, like, his passion and his energy, but also how he wants to get the best out of everybody on the football field? And to me, it's exciting because he's not just working with the D line now. I mean, it's that whole entire defensive unit.
Yeah, I think that quote sums up Weave to a T, because when you talk to him one-on-one, he's like the nicest guy. He smiles all the time. He's very kind. He's asking questions about the family and your wife, and he's really showing that he cares about you as a human being and as a person, aside from just a football player. But when you step between those white lines, boy, that guy, he changes up, and rightfully so. He, in the position that he had, at least when he was here early, as a defensive line coach, man, you have to have that energy. You have to have that fire, because that's where the games are won and lost, in the trenches. And defense is a different type of football than the offense. Like, offense is, you got to be a tactician. You got to be schematically correct. You got to be on point with everything that you do. But defense is a mindset. You have to be willing to be more physical, have more effort, just getting all over the place. And you have to be willing to dominate the guy across from you. And you have to have a different type of energy than on offense. And I think we've, from watching him coach for 3 years, I think about that, what he was able to do with that D line that we had in 2023. And I just think, if now he's able to take that same energy, that same passion, that same fire, that same juice that he has, and apply that to the entire defense. I think the guys, especially with the young talent that we have, and maybe even some of these older guys, kind of rejuvenate them I think everyone's going to feed off that because no one's going to have more energy. I mean, maybe Jesse will. I'll see. I haven't been around Jesse on the field, since 2020, and 2020 was a little bit of a blur for me, as it was just my first year in the league. So I don't remember too much about it, but I know, I was with Weave for 3 years, and it's going to be hard to top his energy, his level of enthusiasm, and him doing his what he does on the field, rah rah, getting everybody going. And I think that's what not that we didn't have it before, but I just think that we need something different, something new, and a different voice saying a similar message, but maybe having just a different way of getting it across to the guys to get them to respond to, a little bit better. And I think where we're heading, defense is something that we have to get better at. I feel like, that's a pretty obvious thing to say. We didn't play our best game, our best defense last season. And that's something that, Mr. Bisciotti takes very personally. He's very passionate about being physically dominant on defense. And, I know Eric and Sashi and Ozzy and, Jesse being a defensive minded head coach who's, he said in his interview he was going to call the defense. I think adding a guy like Weave is just another testament to that. We're going to get back to this old school Ravens football, nasty, physical, violent defense that's dominant, stops the run, and really controls the game of football for us to get these wins.
Yeah, I'm pumped up about it. In 2024, first year in Miami for Anthony Weaver, his defense was really good. I mean, they were top 10 in all the conversion stats and third down, fourth down, red zone. You had a lot of good things when it came to pass defense, run defense. They were 7th in pass defense, 12th in rush defense. They were top 10 scoring defense. 2025 was a bit of a struggle for the whole team in Miami in general. They traded away some key pieces and whatnot. But again, like having him in the building with Minter calling the plays and Weaver kind of being that overseer guy, like you mentioned earlier, I think it's an awesome fit and something I wasn't even sure was going to happen because, again, I thought Weaver was going to go call plays somewhere, but I guess those opportunities were kind of dwindling down. And I think it's cool that he wanted to come back to Baltimore and have an opportunity to be a part of something what I think is going to be pretty special again. And coming up, Nick and I will talk about Declan Doyle because a Bears player has now outlined how big of a loss Declan Doyle is for that Bears team and what he did for them on a day-to-day basis under Ben Johnson. So stay tuned. Plenty coming up on the show. First, the show is brought to you by Gusto. Let's be real. No one starts a business for the joy of calculating tax withholdings or managing payroll spreadsheets. That's where Gusto comes in to take the stress out of payroll, benefits, and HR so you can focus on running your business and supporting your team. Gusto is the all-in-one remote-friendly payroll and HR platform that makes managing your team simple, transparent, and fast. Whether you're hiring, onboarding, or paying employees, Gusto helps you do it all from one place without the hassle or hidden fees. Unlimited payroll runs for one monthly price, which means no surprise charges at the end of the month. Gusto's automatic tools like offer letters, onboarding materials, and direct deposits save me hours every week, and knowing you can reach certified HR experts anytime gives you real peace of mind. Try Gusto today at gusto.com/LockedOnNFL and get 3 months free when you run your first payroll. That's right, 3 months of free payroll at gusto.com/LockedOnNFL. One more time, that's gusto.com/LockedOnNFL. And the show is brought to you by FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff, the final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're back in the favorite, riding with the underdog, or building one last same game parlay, this is the game everyone's been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to the final whistle. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season is over. Last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Back here, Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher and Ravens long snapper Nick Moore still chopping it up with you here on this Tuesday edition of the show. Thanks again for being here, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. We have 5 days a week plus more daily Ravens coverage as well. There's a lot of other stuff for you. We have the Everydayer Club, which you can get one-on-one text access with me, access to a Discord server, weekly Q&As. That's the link in the description below, as well as the Locked On website. can find it on the Locked On Ravens page as well. Moving on from Anthony Weaver, let's talk about Declan Doyle a little bit, because he obviously has come in as a new offensive coordinator. And, he certainly is younger in the age department than any coordinator at that spot. He's the youngest offensive coordinator in the NFL. And he and Lamar Jackson are quite close in age at 29 years old, which is an interesting dynamic. But look, you can't question the guy's resume, Nick. I think that's the thing that I'd look towards, where being under Ben Johnson, being with Sean Payton for all those years, having a role in the tight end department in Denver with Payton, and obviously back to some of what he was able to do there. I feel like Doyle has the resume. He has everything set up, and the way that people speak about him, whether it be coaches he's worked for or worked with, his former players now, it speaks volumes. And Cole Kmet actually talked a lot over on The Score in Chicago, 104.3, about the role, because people are kind of wondering, Ben Johnson calls those plays over there. So like, what was Declan Doyle's role in Chicago? What did he do? And Cole Kmet outlined it pretty well. And he said, quote, even though Declan didn't call the plays for us, the amount of work that he did on the offensive side of the football was immense. You could see that day-to-day in practices. Declan was very hands-on with all of us. Declan's the one addressing the offense at halftime, going over the openers that are going to be coming up in the second half, telling us what we need to do, what they're seeing, and how we can make adjustments. Declan was definitely a very valuable piece to us offensively, and essentially called it a very big loss for the Chicago offense. And again, Chicago's loss here, I think, is Baltimore's gain. I think Todd did a lot of good things with the offense over the last 3 years and expanding it and helping it grow. But I think with Declan, him coming into this opportunity with an already, Nick, in my opinion, a very high floor offense that has Lamar and Derek and Zay and Mark and all those guys on it, I think that it's a perfect situation for Declan to grow alongside Lamar. And it's different, right, with Caleb versus Lamar, Nick, where Caleb, second year going into his third year. We know Lamar already is a two-time MVP. He's one of the best players in this league. Like, there's not a lot of quote unquote development for Lamar Jackson the way that it is with Caleb Williams. But I think that's a good thing for Declan, and they can grow together just in a different way than Declan and Caleb grew together.
Yeah, I think what he was able to do with Caleb Williams this past season is just truly incredible. I think, Caleb didn't have a great start to his career, caught a lot of heat, but what he was able to help that Bears offense do this past season was truly remarkable in my opinion. And the fact that he was able to work under Sean Payton, who's arguably one of the best offensive minds we've seen, in the NFL in a long time, with his work with Drew and what they were able to do in New Orleans and what he's able to do with Bo Nix in Denver. I think, gaining that knowledge from him is just incredible. And then Ben Johnson's one of the best and brightest up and coming head coaches, one of the best offensive minds, when he was with Detroit and what he was able to do with Jared Goff and that team, and be a consistent contender for a Super Bowl and going to, several NFC championships. He's got a boatload of knowledge. I think age is such a number. It's such a thing that gets thrown around because, people are they think like you have to have all this life experience and be, this grizzly dude in his mid 40s before you can really get the opportunity of do this. But like, you look at Sean McVay, who's the youngest head coach of all time at 33 years old, like what he was able to do when everyone was like, oh, he's so young, he has no, he's not gonna blah 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 blah. And here they are, playing the NFC championship, have already won a Super Bowl. Like, I just think age is such a thing that it doesn't even matter. Like, the guy's got knowledge. He's worked with some of the best offensive minds in the game. He's coming into a situation with a two-time MVP at quarterback, an offensive player of the year at running back, one of the best young, I think Zay's going into his fourth year now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
One of the best young talents at wide receiver, one of the most electric players to watch on the field, and having a guy like Mark Andrews and throwing in Justice Hill and Keaton Mitchell and Tez Walker and Bate and all these guys, who knows what Eric and Jesse and them are going to do, and adding other pieces to that offense. I just think he's in a position where he's learned as much as, I don't want to say as much as you need to, because you constantly have to grow and develop in this league,
Right,
to continue to be better than you were in previous seasons. Because it's not about what you did last year; it's about what you're going to do for us now. And I think he's coming into the best situation, arguably one of the best offenses in the league, that underperformed last year. We did not play well in any, we had a couple bright spots here and there, but the overarching theme was we didn't play our best football. Lamar didn't have his best year. Derek didn't have his best year. I think as a whole, the entire team, none of us had our best seasons last year, but I think Doyle coming into the perfect situation. They were adamant about adding youth to the coaching staff. And I think 29 years old speaks for itself.
Yeah.
I think having a mentor like Jesse, who's been around the league for a long time, been in Baltimore, knows how we operate, knows the traditions, knows the expectations, knows the culture that we have here. I think Declan's going to fit in perfectly with that. And I'm excited to see what he's able to do. I personally love this hire. It's the first time I've ever been older than a coordinator. That's not why I love the hire.
Yeah.
I love the hire because, I hate to say this online because I don't want Ty to get mad, but Todd Linderbaum is one of my closest friends. He's a free agent at the end of the season. There's obviously a connection with Doyle. His dad was a strength coach at Iowa, a longtime strength coach, one of the best college football strength coaches of all time. And Tyler was roommates with Declan's younger brother at Iowa. So there's definitely the relationship there. I'm hoping that they keep my buddy in town. I'd love to have Lindy back. He's such a valuable piece to our offense, the tip of the spear, as Harbs used to call him, and I think he's just one of the best young offensive linemen in the entire league. And even that, I think he's one of the best offensive linemen and centers in the entire National Football League. And I just think that with, if we can keep him, and then with Doyle having the knowledge that he has with the weapons that he's going to have here in Baltimore, I'm just excited to see what we're able to do, because last time we got a new OC, Lamar won MVP. So not saying that's going to happen again, but it's something that I think would revamp and rejuvenate our entire system. And I think it was something that's needed, and I'm excited for the future. I think our future looks bright on the entire team, but with Declan Doyle, I think it's going to be a lot of fun for our offense.
Yeah, well, actually, it's happened both times. When the Ravens went from Marty
That's
Morning
true.
right to Greg Roman, 2019,
Yep.
That was the first year. MVP,
Yeah.
put it on the board. Then you mentioned
Yeah.
Greg Roman and Todd Monken, put it on the board. So hey,
Wow.
it's a trend now. I mean,
I guess three times almost a guarantee that you're going to get it. If he gets it again this year, if you have 3 MVPs with 3 new offensive coordinators, I feel like we're setting a trend here. So
yeah, see, so that's the goal. That's the agenda we got to push here. New offensive coordinator equals Lamar Jackson MVP. So that's what we're going with here. All right, that's what we're going with. But I think that one of the cool things is, when Jesse Minter was up there talking at the press conference, and we'll get to that in a couple minutes, just from your perspective and what you heard from that, Nick. But one of the things that he talked about was, at the time, the Ravens offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator searches. And one of the things he said in that was he's looking for, quote, leaders and connectors and relationship builders and schematic expertise, but most importantly, guys that the players believe in. And that's one of the big things I thought that Jesse did a really good job of kind of hammering home, is like, this is a group effort here. This is a team operation where it is about the players. It is about the coaches. It's about everybody making everybody better. And the Ravens production team did a really good job of, documenting Jesse's first couple of hours within the castle once he first got there. And, what he told the staff that welcomed him was he was really excited about making it we. And so I think that trickles down to everybody. And from the coordinators in particular, with Declan and Anthony Weaver and all that, it's like, these are guys that, obviously, with Weaver being in the building and you talking about like players loving him and getting behind him, and you talking about how you feel about him, and then with Declan being a guy that already has a ton of respect around the league and a lot of different experiences, it's one thing to know a lot about the X's and O's of football, which of course is important, but that's obviously not all that goes into it. It's about being able to build relationships with guys and be a part of the team and be a leader. And I think that for him, in his eyes, they do all those things at a very high level.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think you're spot on with that. And Jesse was very clear about that in his press conference. And I think that this is the way we're going. Eric and Sashi and Jesse were all, upfront and honest that players were going to have a say in who was, Eric said that certain guys had conversations with Jesse. Certain guys are going to have conversations with offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators. So obviously these two guys are guys that players on our team are already behind, and we haven't even started yet because they were there. They were in the interviews. Obviously with Weave, it's different because a lot of the guys on the defense, especially the older players, have a relationship with him, having played with him, but he played for him early, when he was here. But I just think it speaks to the volume that the organization is willing to go in and say, we have the pieces that we need. We trust our players. and we want them to be a part of this system. We don't want to have a system and say, fit, like, I need all you guys to do this. It's like, no, we're all in this together. We all want to win a Super Bowl. At the end of the day, that's our goal. That's what we're trying to get to every single day. That's what we're working towards. I think that has to be a collaborative effort. At the end of the day, we're all adult, we're all grown men. Like, you know, Lamar's making 255 million. You got Derek, and we're all in this together. And we all live and breathe this. We all know football. We all want the same thing. Why can't it be a collaborative effort? And this is something that they have taken to heart. And Eric has done a fantastic job, and Sashi and Steve, of making that a reality for a lot of these guys. Because at the end of the day, people just want to be heard and respected, and they want to know that the organization is behind them. If that they feel a certain way, that they're going to back their play. And in this situation, I think, I don't know specifics. I don't talk to Eric and any of those guys about these moves. It's way above my pay grade. But I think they were very clear at the press conference that this was something that they were going to do. So obviously there's already a ton of backing and support for Declan. And I think that is already leaps and bounds ahead of where we could have been. So I'm excited for it. I think that there's a lot of good things on our way. I can feel that guys are excited, the few that I've been able to talk to. And I think that we're going to move in the right direction and get back to where we need to be, and the high potent offense that we are capable of being.
There are a lot of new ideas, and that's the thing, right? It's a reset here for the organization staff wise. So there are going to be a lot of new ideas that are coming in the building, which I really like. And I think one of the big things too, and coming up in the final part of the show, we'll talk about Jesse Minter and more of his ideas and what his visions are, and what Nick saw at his press conference. But that's something that excites me, is all the new ideas. So we'll talk about that and a lot more coming up on Locked On Ravens. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. February can be a lot. Flowers, candy, stuffed animals, and so much talk about relationships. And it can honestly feel like everyone else has it all together in their love life. But here's the truth. Whether you're married, dating, single, or just focusing on you, most people are still figuring it out. And no matter where you are in your romantic journey, therapy can help you find your way. It can help you get clear on what you want, what feels heavy, and how to take some pressure off yourself. It's easy to assume everyone else has the perfect relationship. Most people are working through something. Therapy can help you recognize patterns that might be weighing relationships down. It can help you communicate better, set healthier boundaries, and stop carrying everything alone. BetterHelp has licensed therapists in the US, and they do the initial matching work for you, so you can focus on your goals. And if you want to switch therapists, you can do that at any time. Sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's BETTERHELP.com/lockedon. And the show is brought to you by TurboTax. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms and work to get you every deduction. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver and gives real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in if a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year. Just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. Back here, Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher and Nick Moore still chopping it up with you here on this Tuesday edition of the show. Nick, you were there for Jesse Minter's press conference. You actually were front and center with Jesse Minter in all these photos, man. I mean, you and Q were side by side, like Locked On Ravens squad show action. Like, well, how did it happen? You just like stopped, or what happened?
Dude, I said
that's what it was. Okay.
Yeah, I said this on Rip's show.
Okay.
So there's a lot of guys were up there. They asked, they knew, like, a lot of us train here in the off season. I live right down the road from the facility, so I work out there, every day when I train. So he's going down the line, shaking hands, daps me up, and then he just stops right next to me. I was just standing there. I wasn't like, I was actually kind of hoping I would get like in the back a little bit, because I haven't had a haircut in a long time. I'm looking kind of scruffy, and I was in my workout gear because I was in the middle of my workout. I was late to my workout, so I showed up to the presser in my workout attire. And then he ends up standing right next to me and getting on my side. And I was like, well, I texted my wife as soon as I got done with the photos. I was like, I should have got a haircut because I'm about to be all over social media right next to Jesse Minter and his press conference pictures with the players and looking like a bum out there. So, but it was so fun to be there, and obviously a unique situation. We haven't had one of those in a long time here in
Yeah.
Baltimore. It didn't seem like he was dancing around any of the questions that he was asked. He kind of hit everything head on, was very upfront and honest about everything that he was asked. And I just thought he did such a great job. And to me, like, you as the head coach, like, that's your job. You got to be the guy on the front line taking the bullets for everybody else. And watching him do that, not that he was taking bullets because it's a different situation, but that that comes with the territory. And I just thought it was really cool and unique situation for me to watch, as someone who wants to get into the podcast and the speaking side of it. How he handled that was really cool to see it firsthand. So there's a lot of other takes I have on it, but I thought, from that, I thought it was a great presser.
No, yeah. And I mean, I definitely want to hear your other thoughts on it, and also just being there and kind of taking everything he had to say. I mean, with that now, I mean, what are you most excited for as you kind of head into this offseason? Maybe for you personally, kind of what does that look like for you? And also just what are you most excited about, this team now as they embark on this new journey? And, I know the goal for you guys is Super Bowl every year. That's your expectation. That's what you want to go. That's where you want to be. But for you, for Jesse and just being in the building and listening to him, I mean, how pumped did that get you to kind of embark on this offseason journey and get ready for next year?
I think it was the first time this offseason where we were finally like, boom, all right, we got the direction that we're heading. Let's start going that direction.
Yeah.
Because, the first couple of weeks with Harbs being fired and the whole situation happening, like, it was kind of like a 2.5, 3 week limbo period. We're just kind of dwelling on what happened in Pittsburgh, and you're like kind of waiting to see who's going to become the new coach, what coaches are going to stay, who's going to leave. Like, it was just what felt like forever, but it was really only like 2 weeks. And then we hire him, and then boom, we start heading. I kind of brought it up earlier in the show. It's like, boom, hire coach, and then boom, 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 boom. Everybody
Yeah.
else is, coming and following in line. And we're starting to get our coaching staff in order, and we're starting to move in the right direction. Obviously, free agency is not till March, so there's a lot of player pieces that we won't know about until then. But I think being in there, like, it sounded like one of the questions he was asked, I brought this up on Rip Show. One of the questions he was asked was, who his coaching mentor was. Like, who did he idolize as a coach? And I thought he said, at the beginning of his career, when he was first getting into coaching and early on in his career, it was his dad. He was kind of the one that inspired him to be a coach. And, kind of, he was like the guy he would go to lean on for, if he was struggling or if he needed help or whatever it may be. It was kind of his dad. And then he got into the latter half of his career leading up to this point was he worked for Harbs, John Harbaugh for 4 years. And then he worked again with Jim Harbaugh for 2 years, or I think it was 2 years, right, in LA.
Yep.
Yeah. And so he had talked about those two guys being his up to date mentors that he looked to. He kind of modeled himself after those guys. And to me, I took it as he understands the culture that was created here, that has been created here. I mean, we're 30 years old now in the Baltimore Ravens. John had been here for 18 seasons. What he was able to do, the culture that he was able to create, Jesse was a part of that, and he understood, he knows that stuff. And I think he has an appreciation for that because of the respect that he has for Coach Harbaugh. And he talked about Harbs had texted him saying, I hope that they hire you. You're the right man for the job, that kind of thing. And I think he knows that, and the culture that we've had. And a lot of guys believe in that stuff. Like, a lot of the players believe in the culture. Like, it's a family friendly environment. I think that they try to put the person before the player, and they do a really good job. And John was one of the best at that, and really just cared about the players. But I think there's things that could have been better that Jesse recognizes and brings in a youthful, he's a lot younger than Coach Harbaugh. He's been around. It's kind of that new age football style, and I think that that's the kind of youthfulness that we're going to see, and that he's going to bring and rejuvenate us, not in a bad way, but I think it was something that was needed. I think we needed a change. And I think that all parties involved are in a better spot than they were previously.
I love it. It's a new era in Baltimore. A lot of
It is a new
moves.
era.
And look, the staff's getting rounded out. Jesse's continuing to add guys he has connections with, and those guys that he adds also have connections. So it's going to be exciting to see how the rest of this offseason shapes up. Nick, I appreciate you. Thanks so much for hopping on. Before I get you out of here, tell me where I can find you.
Yeah,
Where I can find you?
Instagram's all I got. Trying to get to 20,000 followers. Give me a follow at NickMoore046. Check it out. We need to do better about. I need to do better about doing some content. Got some golf content coming this offseason.
There we go.
So
there we go.
We'll get things out there for the peeps to watch. So give us a like or give us a follow there, babe.
Yeah, need a Nick Moore long snap compilation workout in the off season.
Yeah,
got to do the highlight tape.
That up there. Maybe
there you go. Let's go.
Maybe we'll do something. We'll see.
Be sure you follow Nick over on Instagram, and of course you can check him out here when he pops on Locked On Ravens and on the Locked On Ravens Squad show. And be sure to go support him. Nick, I appreciate you again. Thanks for hopping on, and thank you to everybody who watched and listened today to Locked On Ravens. Coming up tomorrow, more Ravens content and coverage. So be sure to stay tuned, and I'll see you right back here soon on Locked On Ravens.